Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Chaz Kayato, and for today's video, what we're going to discuss is chapter 3 of the dissertation for the American College of Education. And so if you guys have been watching some of my videos before, you know that I'm in the dissertation process at American College of Education, and I'm going to give you information about each of the classes as I go through them, which can hopefully help you in the process of writing your dissertation through American College of Education down the road. So I did write down some ideas because there was a lot to go over, and it could be kind of stream of consciousness where I bounce around a bit. But once again, this is to help you out. So sorry if I do bounce around a good bit. So I know I've mentioned it before, but just to remind you, the dissertation is not written in sequential order. You don't go chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5. It's written chapter 3, then 2, then 1, then 4, then 5 afterwards. And this also comes before, or I'm sorry, that all comes after the concept paper, which is not technically a dissertation course, but I always count it as one because you're doing a lot of legwork for the dissertation, and the process is very similar of finishing that class. And then you also do have to defend the dissertation as what I consider the 7th class, because my understanding, and obviously I'm not there yet, there still may be changes to the dissertation that's even happening that late. So even though it's technically 5 classes doing the 5 chapters, I really count it as 7. And even before then, the research chapters or the research classes that you're doing prior really do have some foundational elements to prepare you for the dissertation. So chapter 3 is the first chapter that you write, and it is the research and methodology portion of the dissertation. And so this means that you're going to be writing about how you're going to conduct your research. You're not conducting research yet, but you're talking about how you will conduct it. What is the methods that you will use? Are you qualitative? Are you quantitative? And so you've established pretty much what you're doing through the concept paper. So it's not like you're starting over from scratch with chapter 3. You already have much of this established in the concept paper. Now, I think I mentioned this in the concept paper video, but just to let you know, you can expect a lot of changes. I know that from my concept paper to my chapter 3, there were quite a bit of changes. Some things that I wasn't totally comfortable with through the concept paper and through the iterative process, which I'm going to talk about as well. Things changed in chapter 3, and I kind of have expectations that things will change as we go further along. So chapter 3 is research and methodology. Now, we're describing what we want to do in the research, but the research isn't going to come for at least another 6 months, right? So if you're taking a new class it's a 10-week class, but realistically you're taking it every 3 months. So you're really planning for 6 months from now, and that's if you have no hiccups and you don't have to repeat a class or take a class off. So you're essentially planning for the future when you're writing this chapter. So I would say right out the gate, understand things are going to change, and as soon as you know who your committee member is, your dissertation chair, and your teacher of record for chapter 3, I think you should contact them and just kind of make sure you're all on the same page. So if this is the first video that you've watched, you didn't watch concept paper, your dissertation chair is the person that's going to be with you through these 5 to 6 more chapters or classes rather that you have to take. You didn't have a dissertation chair in the concept paper. A committee member is someone who also inputs information, gives their voice feedback for the paper that you're writing. And then your teacher of record, that's actually going to change every single class. It's someone that checks and grades and gives you feedback on the different modules within each chapter. So you have these three people that are working through this dissertation with you, and the teacher of record that does change each term. I don't know that you can't get the same teacher of record for a later course. I think you can, but through my 2 courses that I've taken and the one that I have coming up, I have had different teacher of records each time. So so just know that that will probably change each time. So okay, so you've contacted them. I just think that's good. I think that's good because it lets you know, or lets them know who you are, and shows that you're ready to work, right? Because what we want to do is we want to make sure we are hitting the ground running. What I mean by that is you want to have you want to have as much work done prior to starting the course as possible. You can't really have all of chapter 3 written necessarily before you get to the course, and you're going to have to make some changes. That's the iterative process that I was talking about. It means that you write something, you get feedback on it, and then you have to create another iteration. You have to write it again. And sometimes this bounce back can happen 2 or 3 times per module. Now sometimes you just get, the check mark and say, hey, that was everything that you needed to have. Go ahead and start working on the next module. But just expect that the iterative process is going to be quite a bit of a bounce back. So the more you can have prepared, the better. So now you won't be able to do everything, and there are some things that you're going to need to wait until you get started to really figure out. But we'll kind of walk through that in a second. So just know that you're going to make a lot of changes. And one thing about the changes, you are actually required by ACE by the end of the dissertation to have an editor that works with you to edit the final paper for publication. But you are allowed to work with an editor earlier. So if you want to work with an editor, if you think that that will help you get through the dissertation quicker with less hiccups, that's something that you can do as well. And that would add another voice to help write or to help produce high-level content so that you can pass through your courses quicker. Editor's obviously not going to write your paper for you, but they will give you valuable feedback on structure, syntax, how things should be arranged, all that. So that would be something you may want to consider. Okay, so another thing that you want to do before you start is make sure you understand when everything is going to be due in the chapter. So the chapter kind of works like this, where you are technically, module 6 is like the last module where you're writing new content, and then the last 4 weeks is just bouncing back. And while that may sound like, oh, you know what, that's simple, I'll be done halfway through, and trust me, the iterative process and trying to get on the same page with your chair, your committee member, and your tour, it will take longer than 6 weeks. Okay, some people in my current, or my term that just finished, were doing it all the way up until the last couple days to try to get it all finished. Okay, because there is it works out like this, where you start off the beginning of the class working with your DC, your dissertation chair, to try to get some details sorted out between any changes you may have made from concept. That needs to pass through them before you can do it. So that's why I'm saying you can get some stuff done ahead of time, but you may say, I need to make this change, and your dissertation chair may say, no, we're not going to make that change. And if you have your paper already written, you're going to have a problem, because you're going to have written something that isn't approved. So just understand that you can do a lot of research and have things ready to go, but just understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that you're definitively going to be adding that to your paper. Or you may be wanting to remove something and your dissertation chair may say, no, you need to keep that in there. So that's the first part. It's getting through the first couple weeks with your dissertation chair, getting some approvals that you need, and then going to the teacher of record for the next 4 weeks or so, getting each one of those modules approved before you go on to the next one. And so the modules have several different things going on. You're writing the paper, but you're also, in this course, you're doing a lot of the work for the appendices that are going to be at the end of the dissertation. So understand that you're writing, but you're also doing a lot of work there on the back end. Then also know that well, there's like I said, you're planning for the research for 6 months from now. You don't necessarily, and I could be wrong here, but you don't necessarily have to have the city certification completed to write this chapter, but you will need it prior to conducting the actual research. So if for some reason your city certification is expired or going to expire before you write the research, do the actual research, you probably want to go ahead and do that now and not wait until it potentially sets you back. Something else that could set you back, and I have heard this from previous from previous cohorts, is that the process of getting approval to conduct the research wherever you want could take significantly longer than a few weeks. I even heard one person trying to get approval from their school district that it was the type of thing where they had to apply for another school year completely, which, you know, that could potentially affect when you're able to do your research. Because if it's August and they're telling you you can't apply to do research until the next school year, well, that's next August. So it could, you just need to know the information about when you're going to plan on conducting your research, because that could affect you actually being able to get into the next chapter. It could potentially affect if you even do that school district at all, and that will change potentially some of the things in the research and in the dissertation itself. So just understand that there are some things that you want to start working on sooner rather than later. So the site approval, I've talked about that. Here's something that I heard, and it makes more sense as we're going. I've heard that you want to keep the simplest form of a dissertation as possible, and that if you're the type of person that you really are ambitious with your research, that's great, but you can always do that after you finish the dissertation. If you have too many moving parts during the dissertation process, it could potentially set you back. And I know that there's some people that really want to have a powerful dissertation, but just understand that if it's the type of thing that could set you back a few years because you're constantly having to do revisions, retake courses, you're not benefiting yourself long term on research that you could do separately after you get your doctorate. And maybe even having the doctorate might even open up doors to help you with that research later. So I would recommend keeping things more simple, not trying to stuff as much into the dissertation as possible. So, and now I'm kind of seeing why that's more important now that we're writing an actual chapter, because the more that you have on your plate, the more doors that have to open up, and it could potentially be the case where one door not opening up sets you back an entire term or multiple terms. So have less moving parts in your dissertation. Do what you need to have a good, solid dissertation. And then if you're interested in doing research afterwards, by all means, research to your heart's content. But if you're just trying to get through the dissertation, make it good quality, but make it more simple, okay? And then something else that you should understand too is that whenever you turn in a module, the TOR or the DC, they have 5 business days from when the assignment is due to get you feedback. What I mean by that is if you turn something in 4 days early, you're not necessarily going to get a response 5 days from when you turned it in. It's 5 days from when it's due. Now you may still get you may still get feedback before then, but just understand that the requirement for the tours and the DCs is 5 days from when it's due, because that was an issue with some students not fully understanding that part, and I could tell you like that it was probably spelled out somewhere, and I know that I wasn't fully aware of that until I actually directly asked my tour or my DC, one of the, but yeah, it's 5 days from when it's due. Okay, so just save yourself some mental anguish by understanding that if you turn it in early, it's going to be potentially over 5 days. Now, that being said, if it goes over 5 days, you're well within your rights as a student to be reaching out to your tour, your DC, your committee member, and saying, look, it's been 5 business days and I don't want this to slow me down in the process of finishing this course, because like I said, it's really like it's an iterative process. Every time you send something in, you have to wait to get it sent back to you before you can move on to the next part. And if you have if you have some feedback that you have to make changes, you make those changes. It might take a couple days, then you send that back. Well, they have another 5 days to get it back to you. So just understand that it is kind of a hurry up and wait. You want to get that work done quickly, not sloppily, but quickly, so that way you can send it back, because it's just a bounce back process. So just understand that, because that will help you, you won't stress out as much. And then lastly, as I'm preparing for chapter 2, which is coming up in a couple weeks, as soon as you're done with chapter 3, you're going to want to look at chapter 2. Okay, because that's one thing that I've seen. I've looked at the previous cohorts, and chapter 2 is really labor intensive for research because it is the literature review. So some of you guys, as we mentioned before, you may need a long mental break after writing this chapter, and if that's the case, then so be it. But if you are willing to put in that work as soon as the chapter 3 is done, it seems like, based on what I've read so far, that getting ahead will be beneficial to you from getting the ball rolling as soon as chapter 2 opens up. So anyways, I think I got most of what I wanted to talk about. I think I have everything, actually. So if anything that you feel that I missed that you wanted to add, or if there's any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. I know this was kind of a longer video, but I appreciate you guys sticking with it, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.